The rain hammered against the tall windows of the National History Museum. Inside, the marble floors gleamed under dim emergency lighting. It was 9:47 p.m. 15 minutes before closing time, Kate Morrison stood alone in the Egyptian wing, staring at a limestone tablet covered in hieroglyphics. Her rain-soaked coat dripped water onto the floor. She didn't notice. Her mind was somewhere else entirely, somewhere dark and painful. Behind her, footsteps echoed through the empty hall. "Miss, we're closing soon." Kate didn't turn around. She kept her eyes fixed on the ancient stone, trying to lose herself in its mystery. Anything to forget why she'd come here tonight. The security guard stepped closer. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and kind eyes that had seen too much. His name tag read Robert Chen. "Miss," he said again, softer this time. "I know," Kate whispered. "Just 5 more minutes." Robert studied her carefully. 23 years working museum security had taught him to read people. And this young woman, maybe 28, dark hair plastered to her face, mascara smudged beneath red eyes. She wasn't just a tourist who'd lost track of time. She was running from something. "Take your time," he said quietly, and started to walk away. That's when Kate's phone buzzed. She pulled it from her pocket with trembling hands. The screen lit up her pale face. 12 missed calls. 17 text messages. All from the same person. Her hand shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. "Robert." "What?" "Stopped walking, and if you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that subscribe button. We share powerful true stories like this every week, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Are you all right?" Robert asked, turning back. Kate shoved the phone into her pocket. "I'm fine." But she wasn't fine. Robert could see that clearly. Her breathing was too fast. Her fingers kept clenching and unclenching. She looked like someone standing on the edge of a cliff. "The museum has a cafe on the lower level," Robert said carefully. "Still open for staff? Coffee's terrible, but it's warm." Kate shook her head. "I should go where?" The question hung in the air between them. Kate had no answer. That was the problem. She had nowhere to go, nowhere safe. The phone buzzed again, and again, and again. Robert watched her flinch with each vibration. He'd seen this before, not often, but enough times to recognize the pattern. Fear dressed up as composure. Desperation hidden behind a polite smile. As he said gently, "I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Kate finally looked at him. Her eyes were wet with fresh tears. "Are you safe?" The words cracked something inside her. Her shoulders began to shake. She pressed her hand over her mouth, trying to hold back a sob. "I don't know," she whispered through her fingers. Robert glanced at the security camera in the corner of the hall, then at his watch. His shift ended in 20 minutes, but some things mattered more than schedules. "Come with me," he said. Kate hesitated. "Please," Robert added. "Just trust me for a few minutes." Something in his voice, some quality of genuine concern that she hadn't heard in months, made Kate nod. She followed him across the empty hall. Past glass cases filled with ancient pottery and gold jewelry, toward a door marked "Staff Only." Robert swiped his keycard. The door clicked open. What Kate didn't know was that Robert Chen had a secret of his own, and in 5 minutes, that secret would change everything. Asterisk, the staff corridor was narrow and dimly lit, nothing like the grand exhibition halls. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The walls were plain concrete, painted institutional beige. Robert led. Kate passed storage rooms and maintenance closets to a small office at the end of the hall. He unlocked the door and gestured for her to enter. The office was cramped but tidy. A desk covered with security monitor screens, a worn leather chair, a small bookshelf filled with paperbacks and family photos. On the wall hung a framed certificate in what looked like a military medal in a shadow box. "Sit," Robert said, pointing to the chair. Kate sat. Her wet coat left a damp stain on the leather. Robert pulled a space heater from under the desk and plugged it in. Warm air began to fill the small room. Then he grabbed a blanket from a filing cabinet and handed it to her. "You keep a blanket in your office?" Kate asked, surprised. "Night shifts get cold," Robert replied. He didn't mention that he'd started keeping it there 5 years ago, after finding a homeless teenager hiding in the museum. The boy had nowhere else to go on a freezing December night. Sometimes, the job was more than just watching cameras. Kate wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. The warmth felt like a small mercy. Robert sat on the edge of his desk and crossed his arms. He didn't speak immediately. He just watched her with those careful, knowing eyes. Finally, Kate broke the silence. "You're going to think I'm crazy?" "Try me," Robert said. Kate took a shaky breath. "My boyfriend? Ex-boyfriend. I broke up with him 3 weeks ago. He didn't take it well. Has he been following you?" Kate nodded. "At first it was just texts, then calls. Then he started showing up places. My work, my gym, outside my apartment. Did you call the police?" "Twice," Kate said bitterly. "They said unless he threatens me directly or tries to hurt me, there's nothing they can do. They told me to get a restraining order. So I did. And it made everything worse." Kate's voice cracked. "Now he's angry. Really angry. Tonight, he was waiting outside my apartment building. I saw him from the lobby, and I just... I ran. I didn't even think. I just ran." The phone in her pocket buzzed again. Kate pulled it out and stared at the screen. Another text from Marcus. "I know you're scared. I just want to talk. Please, Kate. I love you." Her hand trembled. "That doesn't sound like love," Robert said quietly. Kate looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to do. I can't go home. I can't go to my parents. He knows where they live. My friends, I've pushed them all away because Marcus didn't like them. I have nobody. You have someone now," Robert said. Kate blinked at him through her tears. "You don't even know me? I know enough." Robert stood and walked to the bookshelf. He pulled out a business card tucked between 2 books and handed it to Kate. She read it. Sarah Chen, licensed clinical therapist, specializing in trauma and domestic situations. "Your daughter?" Kate asked. "My sister," Robert replied. "She runs a women's shelter downtown. Safe place. Private. No one can find you there unless you want to be found." Kate stared at the card like it was a lifeline thrown to a drowning person. "She helps people in situations like yours." Robert continued. "Gets them back on their feet. Helps them figure out next steps. Legal stuff, housing, all of it. I can't afford, don't worry about that now." Kate's phone exploded with a rapid series of buzzes. Text after text. Marcus was getting more frantic. Robert glanced at the security monitors on his desk. Something caught his eye. His expression changed. "Kate," he said slowly, "what does Marcus look like?" Her face went pale. "Why?" Robert turned one of the monitors toward her. It showed the museum's main entrance. A man stood outside the glass doors, peering in. Hands cupped around his face to see through the dark. Kate's breath caught in her throat. "That's him," she whispered. Marcus was at the museum, and he wasn't leaving. Kate's entire body went rigid. On the security monitor, Marcus paced back and forth in front of the museum's entrance like a caged animal. His face was twisted with frustration. "How did he know I was here?" Kate breathed. Robert was already reaching for his radio. "Does he have access to your phone's location?" Kate's eyes widened with horror. "We used to share locations. I thought I'd turned it off, but maybe give me your phone." Kate handed it over with shaking hands. Robert examined it quickly, then powered it down completely. "Too late for that now," he said. "He already knows you're inside." On the screen, Marcus tried the front doors. They were locked. He stepped back, looked up at the building, then pulled out his own phone. Kate's powered-down phone sat silent on Robert's desk. But both of them could imagine the messages Marcus was sending, the calls he was making. "I'm calling the police," Robert said, reaching for the desk phone. "They won't do anything," Kate said miserably. "He's just standing outside a public building. He'll say he was walking by, that he's worried about me, that I'm overreacting." Robert paused, his hand on the receiver. He knew she was probably right. He'd seen it before, the way the system failed people until it was too late. Then we wait him out, Robert said. He can't stay there forever. But even as he said it, both of them were thinking the same thing. Kate had to leave eventually. And when she did, Marcus would be waiting. Asterisk on the monitor. Marcus sat down on the museum's front steps. He pulled his jacket tight against the rain and settled in like he had all night. Kate buried her face in her hands. This is my life now, running, hiding, looking over my shoulder every second. What kind of life is that? Robert was quiet for a moment. Then he said something unexpected. Can I tell you a story? Kate looked up at him, confused. Now? Just for a minute. Robert pulled his chair around and sat down facing her. 28 years ago, I was a police officer. Denver PD, good career, good team, good life. Kate wasn't sure where this was going, but something in his tone made her listen. Asterisk. I had a partner, Robert continued. Officer named Jennifer Reyes. Best cop I ever worked with. Smart, tough, dedicated. We were friends. Close friends. Paused, his jaw tightening. Jennifer was married to a guy named Travis. Seemed like a decent man at first, but over time, things changed. She started showing up to work with bruises she'd explain away. Cuts, she said, came from accidents. We all knew, but she wouldn't talk about it. Kate's chest tightened. She knew where this story was going. One night, Travis showed up at the station, Robert said quietly, demanding to see her, making a scene. We escorted him out, but Jennifer was terrified. She stayed late that night, didn't want to go home. I offered to go with her, make sure she was safe. She said no, said she could handle it. Robert's hands clenched into fists on his knees. I found her the next morning. Travis had been waiting in their apartment. By the time we got there, it was too late. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the space heater. Kate felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I quit the force 6 months later, Robert said. Couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't handle another case like hers. I took this job because I needed something quiet, something where I didn't have to see that kind of darkness every day. He looked directly at Kate, his eyes fierce with conviction. But I also took this job because I made myself a promise. If I ever had the chance to help someone like Jennifer, someone who was scared and alone and trapped high, wouldn't look away. I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't let the system decide if they deserved protection. Kate's voice was barely a whisper. What are you saying? Robert stood up. I'm saying you're not alone anymore. Marcus out there? He gestured at the monitor. He doesn't get to decide your life. But what can we do? He's just going to follow me wherever I go. Small smile crossed Robert's face. The museum has 6 exits. Marcus is watching one of them. Kate sat up straighter. You're going to sneak me out? Better than that. Robert walked to his desk and pulled out a different phone, not his work radio, but a personal cell. He dialed a number. Who are you calling? Kate asked. Robert held up one finger, waiting for someone to answer. Sarah, it's Robert. I need a favor. A big one. He turned his back slightly, speaking in low tones. Kate caught fragments. Domestic situation. Need somewhere safe? Can you send someone? When he hung up, he looked satisfied. My sister runs the shelter, but she also coordinates with an underground network, Robert explained. Volunteers who help people in crisis. Drivers, safe houses, legal advocates. People who don't wait for paperwork or permission. Kate felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Someone's coming to get you, Robert said. Different exit. Different car. Marcus will never see you leave. But what about you if he finds out you helped me? Let me worry about that. On the monitor, Marcus was still sitting on the steps, staring at his phone. Kate stood up, the blanket falling from her shoulders. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. Robert looked at her for a long moment because Jennifer deserved better. And so do you. Then his radio crackled to life, and everything changed. Asterisk, the radio static cut through the small office like a knife. Robert, you there? The voice belonged to Tony, the other night security guard stationed at the museum's west entrance. Robert grabbed the radio. Yeah, Tony, what's up? Got a situation. Guy at the west door is trying to get in. Says his girlfriend's inside and he's worried about her. Getting pretty aggressive? Should I call the cops? Kate's blood ran cold. She grabbed Robert's arm. That's him. He's trying different entrances. Robert kept his voice calm on the radio. Tony, do not let him in. Lock it down. I'm coming to you. Copy that. Robert clipped the radio back to his belt and turned to Kate. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me. Understand? Kate nodded, her face white with fear. Robert moved toward the door, then paused. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small canister of pepper spray, handing it to Kate. Just in case, he said. Then he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Kate locked the door with trembling fingers.
She stood there in the
small office, surrounded by security monitors, showing different angles of the empty museum. On one screen, she could see Marcus at the west entrance, his face pressed against the glass, talking to Tony through the door. Even from the grainy security footage, she could see the rage in his body language. Her chest felt tight. She couldn't breathe properly. This was her fault. She'd led Marcus here, put Robert and Tony in danger. What was she thinking? The pepper spray felt heavy and useless in her hand. On the monitor, she watched Robert arrive at the west entrance. He said something to Tony, then approached the glass door where Marcus stood outside. Kate wished she could hear what they were saying. Robert's body language was calm, professional. He gestured for Marcus to step back from the door. Marcus shook his head, pointed at the building, said something that made his face contort with emotion. Robert remained unmoved. Then Marcus pulled out his phone and held it up to the glass, showing Robert something on the screen. Robert leaned closer to look. Kate's stomach twisted. What was Marcus showing him? The conversation continued for what felt like hours but was probably only 2 minutes. Finally, Marcus threw up his hands in frustration and stormed away from the door. Disappearing into the rain, Kate exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. 5 minutes later, Robert's footsteps returned to the office. Kate unlocked the door and pulled it open before he could knock. What did he say? She asked immediately. Robert's expression was grim. He told me you're his fiancée, that you've been struggling with depression, and he's worried you might hurt yourself. He said you ran away from home, and he just wants to make sure you're safe. Kate felt like she'd been punched in the gut. That's a lie. All of it. I know, Robert said quietly. I've heard that story before. It's always a lie. What did you tell him? That even if you were inside, which I neither confirmed nor denied museum. Policy prevents me from disclosing information about visitors. And that if he didn't leave the premises, I'd call the police for trespassing. Did he leave for now? Robert rubbed his face tiredly. But Kate, he showed me photos on his phone. Pictures of you and him together, smiling, happy, at a restaurant, at a park. He's building a narrative. Kate sank back into the chair. Those are from before he started changing. I believe you, Robert said. But if this escalates, if it goes to court, he's going to use those photos. He's going to paint you as unstable, and himself as the concerned boyfriend. Kate felt tears burning in her eyes again. So he wins. That's it? No. Robert's voice was steel. That's not it. His phone buzzed. He checked it and nodded. Sarah's contact is here. Lisa Park. She's parked at the loading dock behind the building. It's the one entrance Marcus hasn't checked because it's not visible from the street. Kate stood up, hope and fear warring in her chest. She'll take me to the shelter. She'll take you somewhere safe tonight. Tomorrow, Sarah will meet with you. Legal advocate, counselor, the whole support system. They'll help you figure out next steps, restraining orders that actually work, safety plans, housing. Kate grabbed Robert's hand. Thank you. I don't know how to. Don't thank me yet, Robert interrupted gently. You've got a hard road ahead, but you won't walk it alone. He led her back through the staff corridors, moving quietly. They passed the Egyptian wing where Kate had been standing less than an hour ago, past the Greek statues in medieval armor, toward the back of the museum. The loading dock was a utilitarian space of concrete and steel, used for delivering exhibits. A gray sedan was parked with its engine running, headlights off. A woman in her 40s sat in the driver's seat. When she saw Robert and Kate, She got out and opened the back door. "Kate?" the woman asked. Kate nodded. "I'm Lisa. Let's get you somewhere warm." Kate started toward the car, then stopped and turned back to Robert. "What about you? What if Marcus comes back? What if he figures out you helped me?" Robert smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I've handled worse than Marcus." "Go." Kate wanted to say more. Wanted to express the depth of her gratitude to this stranger who'd become her lifeline. But words felt inadequate, so she simply said, "I won't forget this." "I know," Robert replied. Kate climbed into the car. Lisa got back into the driver's seat, and the sedan pulled away into the rainy night, its taillights disappearing into the darkness. Robert stood alone in the loading dock. Rain beginning to drift in through the open door. He didn't move for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made another call. "Detective Morrison, it's Robert Chen. Remember me from Denver PD? Yeah, it's been a while.
Ow.
Listen, I need a favor. Sometimes the system failed people, but sometimes people like Robert made their own justice." 3 weeks passed. The museum returned to its normal rhythm of tourists and school groups. Ancient artifacts and quiet galleries. Robert continued his night shifts, watching the security monitors, checking the doors, making his rounds. But something had changed. Every night, Robert found himself thinking about Kate, wondering if she was safe, if Sarah's shelter had been able to help her, if Marcus had finally left her alone. He'd given Lisa his phone number to pass along to Kate, but he told her to only use it if absolutely necessary. The last thing Kate needed was another man checking on her, even one with good intentions. She needed space. Time to heal. So Robert waited. And then on a cold Tuesday evening in October, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Chen, this is Kate Morrison. Can we talk?" Robert's heart rate quickened. He texted back immediately. "Of course. Everything okay?" The response came quickly. "Yes. Better than okay. Can I stop by the museum tomorrow? Around 7 p.m.? I'll be here." The next evening, Robert found himself checking the entrance cameras more frequently than usual. At 6:58 p.m., he saw a familiar figure approaching the museum's front doors. But this Kate looked different. Her hair was cut shorter, styled with confidence. She wore a professional gray coat and carried herself with a posture that spoke of someone who'd found solid ground beneath her feet. The hunted look in her eyes was gone. Robert met her at the entrance. "Kate," he said, unable to hide his relief. "You look, double quotes, alive." She finished with a small smile. "I feel alive." They walked to the museum cafe. It was after hours, closed to the public, but Robert had a key. He made them both terrible coffee from the industrial machine, and they sat at a small table near the windows. "I wanted to come sooner," Kate began. "But Sarah said I needed time to focus on myself, on healing." She was right. "Tell me everything," Robert said. Kate took a sip of the awful coffee and began. "The shelter was exactly what I needed. A safe place where I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. Sarah connected me with a lawyer who specialized in domestic cases. We built a real case against Marcus, not just a restraining order he could ignore. What happened? He violated the first restraining order within a week. Showed up at the shelter. Didn't know I was there, but he knew Sarah ran it. Started harassing her, trying to get information. Kate's hands tightened around her coffee cup. But Sarah had cameras, documentation, everything." Abbott nodded approvingly. "Sarah doesn't mess around." The second violation happened when he tried to access my email and bank accounts. My lawyer had been monitoring for that. We had digital evidence. Kate's voice grew stronger. "The third time, he followed me from the courthouse after a hearing. Police arrested him right there. Good, he's facing stalking charges now. Real ones with actual consequences. And there's a permanent restraining order with teeth. If he comes within 500 feet of me, he goes to jail." Robert studied her face. "You don't seem afraid anymore." "I'm not," Kate said, and she sounded surprised by her own certainty. "I mean, I'm cautious. Aware, but I'm not afraid. Sarah helped me understand something important." "What's that?" Marcus had power over me because I was isolated, alone, ashamed. I thought it was my fault, that I'd done something to make him this way. Kate's eyes were bright, but not with tears, with determination. But the moment I accepted help, the moment I let other people in, his power dissolved. He's just a sad, angry man now. Not a monster. Just a man. Robert felt something loosen in his chest. A weight he'd been carrying for 28 years. You said it yourself, Kate continued. I wasn't alone anymore. That changed everything. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. So what now? Robert asked. What's next for you? Kate's smile widened. I got a new job. Marketing position at a tech company. Good pay, good people. I moved into a new apartment last week. Sarah helped me find it, building with good security doormen, cameras. I'm taking self-defense classes twice a week. That's incredible. And, Kate added, pulling a folder from her bag, I'm starting a blog. About my experience. About what I learned. Sarah thinks it could help other people who are in the situation I was in. She slid the folder across to Robert. Inside were printouts of blog posts. The header read, From Afraid to Free, One Woman's Journey. Robert scanned the first post. It was raw, honest, powerful. It would help people. He was certain of it. There's something else, Kate said, her voice softer now. I wanted to give you this. She pulled an envelope from her bag and placed it on the table. Kate, you don't need to open it. Robert opened the envelope. Inside was a check made out to the National History Museum's Education Fund. The amount made his eyes widen. Kate, this is too much. It's not, she insisted. You saved my life that night. This museum became my sanctuary. The least I can do is help it continue being a safe place for others. Robert didn't know what to say. Besides, Kate added with a wry smile. My lawyer made sure Marcus paid all my legal fees as part of the settlement. Seemed right to use some of that money for something good. Robert laughed a real, genuine laugh. Jennifer would have liked you? Your partner? Yeah. Robert looked at the medal on his office wall, visible through the cafe's glass doors. She would have been proud of you. Kate reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Thank you, Robert. For not looking away? For keeping your promise to her? Thank you for trusting me. They finished their terrible coffee. Kate told him more stories about the shelter, about the other women she'd met there, about the community she'd found. Robert shared updates about the museum, about the new exhibit opening next month. When it was time for Kate to leave, Robert walked her to the entrance. Will you come back? He asked to visit. Definitely, Kate said. Maybe I'll bring Sarah. She'd love the Greek pottery collection. She hates Greek pottery, I know. Kate grinned. But she loves me, so she'll pretend. They said goodbye, and Robert watched Kate walk out into the October evening. She moved with confidence, with purpose, with freedom. She never looked over her shoulder once. 6 months later, on a warm April evening, the National History Museum held a special fundraising gala. The marble halls were filled with donors in elegant dresses and sharp suits. Champagne glasses clinking, classical music drifting through the galleries. Robert Chen, wearing his dress security uniform, stood near the back of the crowd as the museum director gave a speech about the importance of public education and safe spaces for learning. He didn't expect to be called forward, and now, the director said, I'd like to recognize someone whose quiet dedication embodies everything this museum stands for. Robert Chen, could you please join me? Robert felt every eye in the room turn toward him. Confused, he made his way through the crowd to the front. The director shook his hand warmly. Robert has worked museum security for over 2 decades. But his service goes far beyond protecting artifacts and monitoring cameras. Robert reminds us that museums are more than buildings, they're sanctuaries, places of refuge. And sometimes, they're where lives are saved. The crowd applauded politely. Though most of them had no idea what the director was talking about. We're honored to present Robert with the Museum Excellence Award, and to announce that this year's largest education fund donation has been made in his honor. More applause. Robert shook the director's hand, accepted a small plaque, started to return to his place in the crowd. Then he saw her. Kate stood near the back. wearing a blue dress, smiling with tears in her eyes. Next to her stood a woman who had to be Sarah's same eyes as Robert, same determined chin. But they weren't alone. Behind them stood at least a dozen other women. Different ages, different backgrounds, but all wearing the same expression: gratitude, strength, and hope. Kate caught Robert's eye and mouthed two words: "Thank you." Robert understood then. These were women from the shelter. Women who'd been helped by Sarah's network. Women who, like Kate, had found their way from fear to freedom, and somehow, his small act of kindness that rainy September night had been part of all their stories. After the gala ended and the donors filed out, Roba found Kate, Sarah, and the others waiting for him near the Egyptian wing-right where he and Kate had first met. "Surprise," Kate said, gesturing to the group. "We wanted you to meet everyone. This is my friend Maya. She escaped an abusive marriage last December. This is Jessica. She left a dangerous relationship in February. This is Chen, no relation," the young woman named Chen joked. Shaking Robert's hand, one by one, they introduced themselves. Each woman had a story. Each story was different. But they all shared a common thread. They'd been afraid, alone, and trapped. And they'd all found their way to people who refused to look away. "We call ourselves the Phoenix Circle," Sarah explained. "Women who've risen from the ashes of bad situations. We support each other, mentor new members, advocate for better laws and protections." Kate's blog has over 50,000 followers now, Maya added proudly. "She's helping people across the country." Robert felt overwhelmed. I did what anyone should do." "But most people don't," Kate said gently. "Most people look away, make excuses, decide it's not their problem. You didn't, and that made all the difference." Sarah stepped forward and hugged her brother tightly. "Jennifer would be so proud of you," she whispered in his ear. Robert felt his eyes burn with tears he'd held back for 28 years. The women of the Phoenix Circle spent the next hour walking through the museum with Robert, talking and laughing. They told him about their jobs, their dreams, their plans for the future. They were teachers, nurses, engineers, artists. They were mothers, daughters, sisters, friends. They were survivors. As the evening wound down and the group began to say their goodbyes, Kate hung back. "Can I show you something?" she asked Robert. "Of course." She led him to a small gallery he rarely visited, the modern art wing. In the center of the room hung a new painting, recently acquired. It showed a lighthouse standing firm against a stormy sea, its beam cutting through the darkness. "I convinced the museum to buy it," Kate said. "Used some of my donation to make it happen. It's beautiful." Read the placard. Robert stepped closer. The small brass placard read, "Lighthouse in Storm, by Emma Reyes. Donated in memory of Officer Jennifer Reyes, Denver PD, and in honor of all those who stand watch in the darkness." Robert couldn't speak. His throat was too tight. "I did some research," Kate said softly. "Found out about Jennifer, about what happened to her. I contacted the artist. She's Jennifer's daughter. She painted this years ago but never sold it. Said she was waiting for the right place." "Emma," Robert whispered. "I remember her. She was just a kid when. She's an artist now. A good one. And she wanted you to have this." Kate handed him a small envelope. Inside was a note written in careful handwriting. "Mr. Chen, my mother talked about you often. She said you were one of the good ones. Thank you for keeping her memory alive by helping others. She would have wanted that." Emma. Robert wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "You know what the best part is?" Kate said, looking up at the lighthouse painting. "It's not just about one person standing alone against the storm. Look closely. In the painting, if you paid attention, you could see other lights in the distance. Other lighthouses. A whole network of beacons, each one helping guide people to safety." "We're not alone," Kate said. "None of us. Not anymore." They stood there together in the quiet gallery, looking at the lighthouse, thinking about all the lives that had been changed by small acts of courage. "Come on," Kate said eventually. "Sarah's taking everyone out for late-night dinner. You're coming. I'm still on shift. Tony can cover for you." "I already asked. Besides, when's the last time you let someone take care of you?" Robert couldn't remember. So he went. That night. Surrounded by women who'd survived impossible situations, who'd found strength they didn't know they had, who'd built new lives from the ashes of old fears, Robert Chen finally understood something important. He'd spent 28 years trying to make up for one moment he couldn't change, one friend he couldn't save, one tragedy he couldn't prevent. But he'd been wrong to think in terms of debt, penance. This wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building a different future. One small act of kindness at a time. One person who refused to look away. One outstretched hand in the darkness. Jennifer hadn't died in vain. Her memory lived on in every woman Sarah helped at the shelter, in every story Kate shared on her blog, in every member of the Phoenix Circle who paid it forward by helping the next person in need. The lighthouse wasn't standing alone. Against the storm, it had never been alone, and neither was Robert as they left the museum that night, walking out into the warm April air filled with the scent of blooming flowers and possibility. Robert looked back at the building one last time. The lights were still on in the galleries, illuminating ancient treasures and modern art, stories from the past and hope for the future. A sanctuary, a safe place, a lighthouse, and Robert Chen, the security guard who'd made a promise to a fallen friend, knew that he'd kept that promise in the only way that truly mattered, by being there, by paying attention, by refusing to look away, by standing watch in the darkness so others could find their way to the light.